Okay, so Joyce Carol Oates' The Dollmaster and Other Tales of Horror is a collection of 6 short stories published in 2016, I believe, and so I recently finished reading it, like, only a couple days ago, so surprisingly, all the events, all of this is still kind of fresh in my head, for now at least, since I'm trying to kind of cram in a little bit more books this year, and I hope to be on schedule, but I also I don't want to kind of jinx myself by saying that, but anyway. So the Duel Master is I have to kind of take it one by one. So the first one, the title one, the Duel Master, is about a young man who, starting from like maybe as a boy to him being in his 20s, is very not really fitting in school. He's very kind of it's actually, you get the kind of unreliable narrator kind of thing, because he is the first person to narrate this story, so you get this kind of foreboding sense of like his like a dislike for his father, and like you see all these kind of slight tropes of horror kind of come to the surface a little bit, or but they kind of just foment there, but they don't waiting for him to do something like psychotic and evil, but I don't think that quite happens. It does culminate into some kind of something, and he is collecting these dolls as because he has this affinity for like dolls that have, and he takes like a very strong liking to these dolls and there's like no way of that being eerie at all, not coming off, and he goes to this kind of, I think, a carriage house, as they called it. It was a house that was kind of had a loft in this almost like a rural kind of outbuilding that he would take these dolls to, and he would place them all there lovingly and show affection to them, and he was like truly just had like a weird kind of relationship to these things, and it didn't seem like weird for the sake of weird. Like there was moments when he had a psychiatrist in therapy trying to like deduce what his thing was, and that she had like a doll herself standing there, and he was like admiring it, and like nobody could really get to the surface, like nobody could really, or nobody could even scrape the bot, like even remotely what his problem was, but it was definitely kind of it definitely had this payoff in the end when he and this kind of segues into Gun Accident, the second one in the story, which is about another young man who is actually a young woman, I'm sorry. Hannah is told to look after her father's rifle, and basically is there's a lot of tension going on with the amount of there's like, will it, like you just kind of get the sense that it's going to happen. Then it kind of, there's a point of view of a different young man who's getting a lot of, who just got back from serving prison, and he's very racially charged. He's gotten I think this is Oates trying to like kind of pin a little bit of the underbelly of like what's going on with especially these times of like racially, like very charged, politically charged, cultural too. Just people at each other's throats a lot of the time. And this was before COVID too, so that you must imagine that this was probably more to do with the election. Probably that might have had something to do with it. But yeah, I think that he's so like volatile, and like his temper is like about to like is, he's like outraged, and like how, and like you get the inner thought very much like Raskolnikov, like that kind of inner thought of like how like emotionally like fire, like just completely on the edge of like doing something terrible again, and like every edge, like you feel that charge. And I think that's one of the most kind of one of the most probably ones where I was probably on the most on the edge of my seat than the other one. But yeah, so Big Mama is the third one. It's probably the most. I didn't really get this one as being much of a tale of terror. I didn't really. It was very emotionally fun. It was a vibrant, joyful read. It was about this young girl that is named Violet, who has a very who's raised by a single mother, and there's like a kind of gap and a disconnect between them. Like she expresses that she feels like she's adopted, and she wants to do all these things with her friends, and then just kind of like, she's like, it starts out right in media res, kind of like, mid dialogue between the mother, and a kind of typical conversation is that Violet wants to borrow money, and she does so. Tries to kind of sneakily get out, and her mother is kind of very not like like abusively, like verbally abusive, but just very kind of like no, you can't have the money, and then just kind of just showcasing kind of a day in the life, kind of what typical kind of whereabouts of the house, and she's like she's trying to befriend. So her friends have the Clovis family has. They invite her over for dinner, and then she's like very much kind of feels in league with them, like she feels like she's a part of their family, and they also show her their snake they called Big Mama that they call. It's like this huge python that's reticulating python, and that they all start like asking her like, do you want to feed it or can you feed it? And yeah, it's pretty interesting that there's oh yeah, but the other part of the gun accident I forgot to say, there was the young girl, yeah, I think it was her brother Travis, I think it was her cousin Travis, and he was like coming home in the middle of her trying to take care of her friends, one of her teachers, one of the few teachers she actually had an interesting kind of rapport or a good rapport with, and she was like agreeing to like look after her house, and then her very delinquent, very unhealthy cousin Travis shows up right out of the blue, and then demands to starts like kind of harassing the main character, and she ends up I think Hannah, her name, she ends up accidentally pulling the trigger on his gun, and that that's what set it off. Spoiler alert. But yeah, that was written really well. That was like very kind of Shirley Jackson kind of tension built up. But anyway, so yeah, Big Mama is, and then and then there was Equatorial, which is about this couple, starting right off in in similar first person, where the wife is saying that she believes her husband wants to murder her. And it's like right off the bat, like that's the first I think taste we get of that. But yeah, she suspects that, and you don't know how much of it is just paranoia or how much of it is based in reality. But yeah, they both go to the Galapagos Islands and are looking at, because he's like kind of an evolutionary kind of nerd of has was like greatly educated in that field, and then she actually had a husband before him that died tragically young, and she remarried, and then this marriage quite doesn't really seem to be working out. Like she feels like under stress a lot of the times, like he's like that something horrible is about to happen, and that she's like, and that the least bit that the one part of her like suspects that he's also unfaithful to her. And yeah, there's a lot of built up kind of awkwardness and like kind of like will they or won't they, or what's going to happen. It's all kind of, I feel like this one kind of drug out a little bit too long. It is the longest story of the collection, but I thought it did have a pretty interesting ending to it. Like it kind of left it almost up in the air a little bit of like how that kind of resolves, or if it does resolve. And then the last one on that was the Mystery Incorporated one. And that one was probably one of my favorites, I think, because even though it's not quite, it's like a mix between kind of whimsical kind of framing, and like it's a very cozy kind of story at least the first at least that's how you're brought into it, and then things slowly start to kind of peel away, and you notice that there's like inconsistencies, and not the writing style, but there's inconsistencies in other people's things, and like what people say, and like what the narrator, who's a book aficionado, like a enthusiast of mystery horror, and he goes to this bookstore that was in Massachusetts that is which is a great writer town, or great, New England's a great writer kind of central hub of like Herman Melville, Edgar Allan Poe, and I believe blanking there, but Nathaniel Hawthorne too. Yeah, all those kind of play into the story too, of like New England being kind of a hub of that hotbed for like intellectual / artistic writers, and the he kind of gets wrapped into this kind of mystery of the mystery. That's why I thought it was really clever, because Joyce Carol Oates is able to like make you feel kind of have a meta kind of look into the dynamic of there being a bookshop called the Mystery Incorporated, and that specializes in fiction, and then sells like the mysteries of Udolpho, and talks about Thomas de Quincey's like murder as an art form, and like how that brings up in the conversation too as a kind of device that is like kind of makes him even weirder like near the end, because it gets really tense of like the bookshop owner who's affable, is presented as affable, but has a very kind of sketchy background. Like there's a background of him with his father, I believe it's maybe grandfather, I think, who had a tragic end himself, and but also like had a horrible relationship with his other people, like friends and family, and then treated them awfully too. So it was kind of like he got a kind of taste of his own medicine, is that the way that he saw it. And that, but there's other things too, like there's like, you know, like there's intrigue, and there's, you know, like there's like but I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, that is all I have for The Dollmaster and Other Tales of Horror. Definitely go check it out. I recommend it. And yeah, thanks for watching.